Things are far from settled in Los Angeles. After a chaotic 24 hours packed with transactions, the Lakers seem to be gearing up for more moves. And one name in particular is starting to generate serious attention. According to what was just discussed on SportsCenter, there are new rumblings around a former All-Star who might be the next piece in Rob Pelinka's puzzle. Let's get into everything that was revealed, because there's a lot. Over the weekend, the Lakers shook things up in a big way. First came the addition of Marcus Smart, a major move that's expected to be finalized very soon. Then came the news that both Shake Milton and Jordan Goodwin had been waived, opening up some roster flexibility. But here's the real kicker. This flurry of moves might just be the beginning. Despite what many assumed, that the Lakers might be done for now, this latest update suggests the opposite. A new report is pointing toward more changes on the horizon, and the name getting the most traction? Jrue Holiday. Now, before diving deeper into Holiday, let's rewind for a moment. After waiving Jordan Goodwin, the Lakers had a few ways they could have gone. They could have structured a trade to create space for the biannual exception, or even kept Goodwin and stood pat. But choosing to waive him raised a few eyebrows and sparked a lot of speculation that LA was pivoting toward something bigger. And that's where this Jrue Holiday story comes in. According to Grant Afseth from Fast Break Journal, Holiday has emerged as a name worth watching closely when it comes to the Lakers. He's a proven playoff guard with elite defensive chops, and given LA's recent moves and their remaining assets, there's still enough firepower to chase a player of his caliber. Let's break that down. LA still has Dalton Knecht, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, and several contracts that could be packaged in a deal. More importantly, they haven't touched their 2031 first-round pick, and they've added a 2032 second. That gives them real leverage if the right opportunity comes along, and Holiday may be exactly that. While it's not yet clear whether the Lakers have initiated formal talks, his name continues to surface among league insiders. Multiple sources have confirmed that Holiday is on their radar. He's widely seen as a seamless fit alongside LeBron James, not just because of his championship experience, but because of what he still brings on the defensive end. And remember, the Trailblazers just acquired him in a trade involving Anthony Simons. So the question becomes, do they plan to keep him as a veteran leader for their young core? Or are they open to flipping him for long-term assets? That's where LA might come in. If the Lakers believe Holiday is the missing piece to elevate them defensively and stabilize their backcourt, they'll need to make a decision, and fast. Because while Holiday would bring a ton of value on the floor, there are challenges. For starters, his contract is massive. He's owed $32.4 million this season alone, and he's still under contract for 3 more years, including a player option. He's currently 35. By the time that deal wraps up, he'll be 38. So for LA's front office, the question is the short-term gain worth the long-term cost? But if we're talking about winning now and building a playoff-ready roster around LeBron and Anthony Davis, Holiday checks a lot of boxes. He's a 6-time all-defensive selection over his 16-year career and still moves at a high level on both ends. The bottom line? There's real interest. And even though this isn't a done deal, don't be surprised if the Lakers make another aggressive move soon. They've been methodical this summer, and if Jrue Holiday becomes available, it might be too good to pass up. Now, the big question that came up during the SportsCenter segment was this: would Jrue Holiday actually help the Lakers win a championship? And the answer was pretty clear. Yes, despite being 35, he's still a highly impactful player, and you don't have to look far to see proof. Just 2 years ago, he helped Boston make a deep postseason run, and even now, he's considered one of the league's best perimeter defenders. But what people tend to overlook is how solid he's been offensively as well. Sure, his scoring numbers dipped a bit in Boston, but that was more about their roster makeup than any decline in his skill set. When you've got scorers like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White sharing the ball, your shot attempts are naturally going to take a hit. Still, Holiday quietly shot an impressive 37% from 3 across his career, well above the league average. He's reliable, smart, and still effective on both ends of the floor. Last season with the Celtics, Holiday averaged around 11 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal per game. Solid numbers for a guy playing in a crowded rotation. But what really matters is how seamlessly he'd fit into what the Lakers are building right now. Whether he starts alongside Marcus Smart or rotates in off the bench, the defensive intensity he brings is undeniable. Imagine a backcourt of Smart and Holiday. That's a nightmare for opposing guards. You could go with a small ball lineup featuring Luka Doncic, Holiday, and Smart, then slide LeBron and Ayton into the front court, or if Rui Hachimura ends up being included in the deal, that opens up even more flexibility. Either way, you're talking about a defensive unit that could absolutely smother teams. And with LeBron still orchestrating the offense and Luka carrying so much creative load, the balance would be scary for anyone facing them. Now, as it stands, the projected starting lineup is likely Luka, Austin Reeves, Rui, LeBron, and Ayton. Marcus Smart and Jake LaRavia are probably coming off the bench, and Jackson Hayes backs up the 5. But here's where the debate starts. Should Reeves stay in the starting 5, or would it make more sense to use him as a 6th man and bring in another 3-and-D wing in the starting group? It's a fair question, especially if Rui gets moved in a trade. Some insiders believe the ideal lineup could be Luka, Smart, a true 3-and-D wing, LeBron, and Ayton, with Reeves running the second unit and keeping the offense steady when Luka rests. That could frustrate Reeves a bit coming off his breakout year, but from a rotation standpoint, it adds more balance and allows the Lakers to maintain two-way versatility. Now, one trade package that's been floated around would involve Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, Shake Milton, and a 2031 first-round pick in exchange for Drew Holiday and Chris Murray. But remember, Shake Milton was already waived, so his salary can't be included. That means the Lakers would need to find another way to make the numbers work. Another idea discussed during the segment was adding Dalton Knecht into the mix. That might be more appealing to Portland, especially if they're trying to get younger. But it's tricky. Holiday's contract is hefty, at $32.4 million this season alone, and he has multiple years left with a player option. That's a long commitment for a player approaching 40 by the end of the deal. So why didn't the Lakers just go after him when Boston was shipping him out for basically nothing? That's a valid question. Reports suggest that during the initial Celtics trade, Holiday's physical raised some red flags, which led to Portland slightly adjusting the return, dropping a second-rounder in the final deal. That only added to the uncertainty. Now the Lakers do have flexibility. $39 million in expiring contracts, a 2031 first, a 2032 second, and multiple pick swaps. So a deal could definitely happen. Maybe it's Kleber, Vincent, and Knecht instead of a first-rounder. Maybe you swap the pick for a protected pick swap. There are ways to make it work. At the end of the day, what was clear on SportsCenter is that the Lakers are exploring. And while nothing is imminent, the idea of pairing Marcus Smart and Drew Holiday in the same backcourt, alongside LeBron and Luka, has the potential to change everything. That's all for now, but things are clearly far from over. With the off-season heating up and new reports surfacing almost daily, expect more unexpected moves, bold decisions, and shifting priorities from teams across the league, especially the Lakers. Whether or not Drew Holiday ends up in purple and gold remains to be seen, but one thing's for sure, Rob Pelinka isn't done yet. So keep an eye out. We'll be here to break down every twist and turn as it happens. What just came in on SportsCenter could significantly shift the trajectory of the Los Angeles Lakers. According to reports discussed live on the program, the team might not be done making moves just yet. After a flurry of recent activity, the Lakers may be positioning themselves for one more major acquisition, and this one could very well turn them into legitimate championship contenders. So let's walk through everything that was just reported. According to SportsCenter, the Lakers have already been extremely active in reshaping their roster over the last few days. But what's coming next could be even bigger. As we speak, Los Angeles appears to be creating room for additional adjustments. and the front office is reportedly working the phones in pursuit of a final piece that could elevate this squad to title contention. One of the major recent developments was the team signing Marcus Smart following his buyout from the Washington Wizards. That move forced the Lakers to make some tough decisions, including waiving Shake Milton and Jordan Goodwin to clear space. But beyond simply creating room for Smart, this also freed up another open roster spot, something that could prove crucial in the coming days. And that's exactly where things start to get interesting. Sources told SportsCenter that LA has already explored possible deals involving Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Donte DiVincenzo. According to Clutch Points, those talks took place with the Memphis Grizzlies and Minnesota Timberwolves, respectively. While Minnesota quickly dismissed the idea of moving DiVincenzo, conversations around Caldwell-Pope were a bit more intriguing, surfacing shortly after KCP was included in the blockbuster trade that sent Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic. Let's break down why the KCP situation is gaining traction. There's real buzz, per SportsCenter, that the Lakers might be considering a reunion with Caldwell-Pope, who, of course, was a key part of their 2020 championship run in the bubble. And yes, due to the timing of the Bane deal, which took place before the NBA draft and prior to the official start of the 2025-26 league year, KCP is eligible to be moved again, despite currently being on Memphis's roster. Now, here's where things start to line up. Caldwell-Pope checks a lot of boxes for the Lakers right now. He's a high-level perimeter defender, a reliable veteran presence, and someone who has played and succeeded on championship teams. Not only did he win a ring with the Lakers, but he later won again with the Denver Nuggets, before earning a sizable contract with the Magic. However, his stint in Orlando hasn't gone as planned. Despite being a modern-day Iron Man, appearing in at least 75 games in each of the past 4 seasons, including a full 82-game stretch during one of his years in LA, KCP struggled to find his rhythm in Orlando. He averaged fewer than 9 points per game last season and connected on just 34% of his shots from deep. A significant drop-off for someone who had previously shot over 40% from 3 in 3 of his last 4 seasons. That's especially concerning for a Magic team that ranked among the league's worst in three-point shooting. Still, there's optimism around the idea of him returning to Los Angeles, where he previously shot 38.5% from deep during that title-winning campaign. And when he's locked in, KCP can heat up fast. Streaky, yes, but capable of getting red-hot and swinging games with his shot-making and defensive pressure. And that leads us to where this could all be heading next. Now, staying with what was just shared on SportsCenter, let's look deeper into the contract side of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and why he could realistically be within reach for the Lakers. As discussed during the segment, Caldwell-Pope is potentially heading into the final year of his current deal. However, there's a player option involved, meaning he could choose to opt in and stay under contract. And when you consider both the structure of that deal and the Lakers' long-term vision, it makes this situation even more compelling. Los Angeles has clearly been aligning its moves around the 2027 offseason. That's when they plan to have maximum financial flexibility. Every trade, every signing, every cap decision seems geared toward that moment. Caldwell-Pope, whether he opts in or not, fits neatly into that timeline. He's a player who can contribute right away, but also potentially be part of a longer-term picture. Given his age, he just turned 33, it's unlikely he'd command more than the $21 million he's set to earn. Because of that, most around the league expect him to opt into the final year of his deal, especially since his current contract was arguably a bit above market value when he signed it with Orlando. That makes him not only a logical target, but a very obtainable one. And that brings us to the next name that came up during the SportsCenter report, Donte DiVincenzo. While there's no immediate movement happening, the Lakers reportedly still have interest in DiVincenzo, and that could become something to watch if Minnesota softens its stance. As mentioned on the show, his role diminished a bit last season with the Timberwolves. He was part of the blockbuster trade that sent Julius Randle and DiVincenzo from New York to Minnesota in exchange for Karl Anthony Towns. Though his numbers dipped slightly, DiVincenzo is still a very solid two-way contributor. In fact, during the playoffs, including that tough series against the Lakers, Minnesota leaned on him more, especially with veteran guard Mike Conley aging and his minutes being managed more carefully. DiVincenzo brings toughness, energy, and versatility to both ends of the floor. He's a physical guard with solid size who can defend multiple positions, knock down threes, and move off the ball effectively, a trait that was on full display during his time with the Golden State Warriors. He's fearless, plays with a chip on his shoulder, and brings the kind of grit that would fit well with LA's current identity. In fact, the Lakers reportedly had interest in DiVincenzo during his free agency a couple of seasons ago. Now, with him on a very manageable contract, just under $12 million annually, he presents a feasible target from a financial standpoint. The bigger obstacle here, though, is Minnesota's position. Like the Lakers, the Timberwolves are in win-now mode. They're not looking to help a Western Conference rival get stronger. So, while the money lines up, getting Minnesota to agree would be far more difficult than, say, negotiating with Memphis over Caldwell Pope. Still, if the Lakers were willing to part with a future first-rounder, maybe that 2031 pick, it could open the door. That is, unless Minnesota is high on someone like rookie Dalton Knecht, which could shift the dynamics entirely. But to summarize what SportsCenter just laid out, the Lakers have two clear names on their radar: Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Donte DiVincenzo. KCP is very much available and could realistically be moved, while DiVincenzo seems less likely at the moment, but not entirely off the table depending on how things develop with Minnesota. The broadcast concluded by reinforcing that Caldwell-Pope still has plenty to offer in today's league. He wasn't just thrown into that Orlando-Memphis deal as salary filler. There's real value in what he brings, especially for a team like the Lakers. If brought back, he'd be an ideal fit alongside someone like Luka Doncic. Yes, that possibility was mentioned in passing, or whoever ends up leading the charge in LA this season. And before we wrap, SportsCenter dropped one more stat. A huge portion of Lakers fans tuning in to all this coverage are still not subscribed or fully plugged into these updates. The message was clear: stay locked in. Because if this front office has shown anything over the last few weeks, it's that they're not finished yet. More could be coming, and soon. According to SportsCenter's latest segment, things have taken a sharp and surprising turn for the Lakers, and not in a good way. Following an off-season packed with speculation around Dalton Knecht's future in Los Angeles, a new report surfaced this week after Summer League play that has both fans and insiders buzzing, and frankly, a little concerned. The story? His trade value has taken a significant hit, and that changes the landscape for Rob Pelinka and the Lakers front office heading into the final stretch of the offseason. It also impacts the way they might approach the next few weeks as training camp creeps closer. And beyond Knecht, there were other team developments highlighted that suggest we could be in for a very active run-up to the regular season. Let's break this all down. First, the bombshell report from ESPN NBA insider Jovan Buha. According to multiple league conversations held during Summer League in Las Vegas, Knecht is no longer viewed as a first-round level asset by rival executive. That's a steep drop from where things stood just a few months ago, back when the Lakers were reportedly weighing a package centered around Knecht and their 2031 unprotected first-rounder. That deal, at one point, was enough to bring back players like Mark Williams, or potentially even someone like Nick Claxton. But now, after a shaky Summer League showing, where Knecht struggled to make an impact and at times looked overwhelmed against lesser competition, front offices around the league have cooled significantly. The exact quote from Buha during the segment was telling, "Summer League did not help Knecht's stock at all. At this point, he's not being valued around the league as a first-round piece." That was a consistent theme in conversations with non-Lakers personnel. People were basically saying they wouldn't give up a first-round asset for him right now. That's a drastic change from where things were just weeks ago, and it has real implications for LA's trade strategy. Back during the playoffs, the idea was that the Lakers would use Knecht plus a future pick, possibly that 2031 unprotected, to swing a win-now deal. The front office was reportedly exploring ways to bring in rim protection or perimeter defense, and names like Wiggins and Claxton were floated around internally. But none of those deals materialized, and now the Lakers are left in an awkward spot. To be fair, there's still a world in which Knecht plays a meaningful role off the bench next season. His shooting stroke, when on, is elite. He's on a rookie-scale deal, which helps in terms of cap flexibility. And the Lakers' bench is relatively thin, especially when it comes to wing scoring. So the idea that Knecht could be a useful depth piece still holds merit. The segment emphasized that his poor summer league shouldn't be overblown. Small sample size, inconsistent roles, and subpar game environments all play a part. But perception matters in the NBA, especially when you're trying to move a young player for win-now value. And right now, the perception around Knecht is trending the wrong direction. Here's the reality. If the Lakers want to add another legitimate rotation piece before the season starts, especially a point-of-attack defender, they may now need to attach more value in any potential trade. That's where things get complicated. Remember, the Lakers have already brought in Marcus Smart, which was a huge get defensively. But they still have needs. And now, instead of Knecht being the sweetener in a deal, he might actually be seen as a throw-in. The bench depth looks solid on paper, with Smart, Gabe Vincent, rookie Bronny James likely getting some run, Jake LaRavia brought in as a shooter, plus front court guys like Jackson Hayes and a reportedly rejuvenated Jard Vanderbilt. But even with that group, the question of who's actually going to contribute meaningful playoff minutes remains wide open. In short, this recent shift in how teams view Knecht has added yet another layer of complexity to the Lakers' offseason. And it leaves the front office facing a tough decision: stay the course and hope his value rebounds, or get aggressive and package more assets to land that one final difference maker. Now, picking up where things left off, according to ESPN's SportsCenter update, the situation surrounding Dalton Knecht continues to raise eyebrows inside Lakers HQ. The concern now isn't just what's already happened, it's where things could be headed if his trajectory doesn't reverse quickly. If Knecht starts the season on the outside of the rotation, which seems like a real possibility, then any remaining trade value he holds might continue to spiral. That's especially troubling given the team's clear win-now approach. They're building around a tight core and can't afford to spend development minutes on players who aren't contributing defensively or spacing the floor at a high level. It's true, they did bring in Marcus Smart, a gritty perimeter defender who adds much-needed leadership and intensity. But beyond Smart, LA still hasn't secured another high-level wing stopper. The idea of targeting someone like Andrew Wiggins is still floating around, but nothing has materialized yet. Looking back, the shift in Knecht's perceived value is stunning. After being drafted with real optimism and impressing early last season, he hit a wall midway through the year. Things spiraled quickly, eventually leading to that now-rescinded trade to Charlotte. Since then, the narrative has changed, and that dip in production and confidence has carried over. For context, Knecht finished last season averaging 9 points per game while shooting 37% from deep. Not bad on paper, but the issues ran deeper. His defensive lapses became a real problem. He was slow on closeout, struggled in transition defense, and often looked disengaged on that side of the ball. Even when Luka Doncic arrived and helped spark the offense, Knecht's game never fully adjusted. He caught some easy buckets on fast breaks, sure, but that wasn't enough to mask the defensive concerns. What made it worse, according to analysts on SportsCenter, was the overall lack of reliable wing defenders on last year's roster. Between players dealing with injuries and others being more offensive-minded, the Lakers were often exposed on the perimeter. It forced tough decisions in the playoffs, and Knecht, in the end, was left out of the rotation altogether. He didn't play meaningful postseason minutes, and down the stretch of the regular season, his role shrank dramatically. Now, ESPN insiders believe the Lakers are in a difficult position. On one hand, you don't want to sell low on a recent first-round pick, especially not for a second-round return or as a throw-in piece. On the other, you can't afford to keep dead weight on the bench when the goal is to contend. The ideal solution? Knecht either reclaims his role with stronger play this season or becomes part of a package deal, potentially in a trade for a more established wing like Wiggins. But as of right now, the market simply isn't seeing him that way. Still, some optimism remains. As discussed on the segment, there's still potential for Knecht to find his footing. The bench is thin enough that he could carve out a valuable scoring role, assuming he tightens up the other parts of his game. But it's going to take more than just hitting threes. He'll need to prove that he can stay locked in on both ends of the court. And for fans hoping he's included in a larger deal, the front office likely agrees. The hope would be to package him in a way that upgrades the rotation without giving up too much draft capital. But as things stand, that's a tougher sell than it was a few months ago. Meanwhile, there were a few more notable updates on Lakers bench players. Jake LaRavia, recently signed and expected to provide some much-needed shooting depth, spoke out about the Marcus Smart signing, and his comments reflect the mood around the locker room. "He's a dog," LaRavia said. "He brings energy, he makes the unselfish plays, and he's a vocal leader. That's exactly the type of presence we needed." The idea of Smart being inserted into the starting lineup is gaining traction too. It raises questions about Austin Reeves or Rui Hachimura potentially moving to the second unit. Reeves has the skill set to adapt either way, and Rui's ability to stretch the floor could complement Luka well, especially in lineups where spacing is key. In fact, the ideal starting five proposed during the segment was intriguing. Luka Doncic, Marcus Smart, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, and DeAndre Ayton. That would give the team toughness, shooting, defensive identity, and playmaking. It would also push Reeves into a sixth-man role, something he's handled before. Would Reeves be happy with that role after his breakout year? Hard to say, but it would certainly strengthen the bench, which now includes Gabe Vincent, Bronny James, Jake LaRavia, and Knecht, assuming he sticks. Add in Jackson Hayes and Jared Vanderbilt, and suddenly, the second unit starts to look a lot more balanced, especially if Vanderbilt can stay healthy and LaRavia shoots well. One final update from the bench unit. Jordan Goodwin, previously part of the Lakers' rotation in spurts, has now officially been picked up by the Phoenix Suns. No surprise there. He's a high-energy guard who's shown flashes of being a solid role player. His departure was largely a result of the Smart acquisition, a necessary roster adjustment that reflects LA's shifting priority. The Lakers made a necessary move by waiving Jordan Goodwin and Shabazz Milton, creating space to activate the biannual exception. It wasn't that they didn't try to find trades for some of their expiring deals. They did, but nothing materialized. Still, there's optimism they might pull something off before the season tips off. Focusing on Jordan Goodwin's departure, it does offer a bit of financial relief. His contract was worth $2.3 million, but only $25,000 was guaranteed. That small amount now clears off the books entirely. If Goodwin had stayed on the roster past January 7th, the full amount would have been protected. So, from a financial perspective, this was a low-risk move with potential upside. And while the savings may be modest, it opens the door for other opportunity. Trevor Lane pointed out that Goodwin could very well find another opportunity with a different franchise. He brought solid effort during his stint in LA, and it's good to see him land in Phoenix, a team going through major changes after the Kevin Durant trade. It'll be interesting to see how Goodwin fits in there. What started off with so much promise has taken quite a few turns, and fans are still trying to process where this team stands. But at the end of the day, the Lakers remain one of the league's premier rosters, and with Luka Doncic now leading the way, the ceiling is as high as ever. Let me know what you think about these recent developments. Thanks for sticking with us and watching. We got more than we expected today, as SportsCenter aired a segment featuring Marcus Smart's first public appearance as a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. The veteran guard spoke to the press for the first time since signing with LA, and his comments gave us a real glimpse into where his head's at, not just in terms of his personal goals, but also how he sees his role fitting into this version of the Lakers. He also opened up about early conversations with head coach J.J. Redick, and what the expectations are for him as one of the team's newest additions. Let's dive into what was shared. According to SportsCenter, Smart officially finalized his 2-year, $11 million contract, which includes a player option in the second season. And at his introductory presser, he touched on a range of topics, but the most important one was clear: he's here to compete at the highest level. When asked what it means to join this franchise, Smart didn't hold back. He said the opportunity to fight for a title in LA ranks right at the top of his priority. "This is where basketball is at its biggest," he said, "and I'm joining a team that can actually use what I bring. I know I can help them win. It's the right spot for me." Now, the Lakers didn't just bring him in for the name. This move fills a very real need. After recently locking down a new starting center in DeAndre Ayton, LA had one more glaring hole to address: perimeter defense, specifically someone who can contain opposing guards right at the point of attack. That's been a weak spot for the Lakers over the last few years, and outside of guys like Jared Vanderbilt, they haven't really had anyone who could do that consistently without hurting them offensively. That's where Smart comes in. He's known league-wide for his toughness, defensive IQ, and versatility. But he also offers real value on the offensive side of the floor. Though he started out as a traditional point guard, he's grown comfortable playing off the ball, knocking down shots, and operating as a secondary playmaker. He's been in plenty of high-stakes playoff battles, and that experience matters. His ability to shift between roles makes him an ideal fit in a Lakers rotation that's constantly adapting. One major factor SportsCenter pointed out, however, is Smart's recent availability. He's been plagued by injuries over the last couple of seasons, only suiting up for a total of 54 games. In fact, he's only reached the 60-game mark once in the past 5 years. So naturally, there were questions about his durability going forward. Smart addressed that too. He admitted that the last 2 years haven't gone the way he hoped, but he also made it clear that he's using the setbacks as motivation. "It's been tough," he said, "but I believe everything happens for a reason. Maybe it was meant to slow me down. Maybe it was meant to make people doubt me. Either way, I'm here now, and I'm ready to remind everyone who I am." And that's exactly the mentality the Lakers are looking for. As SportsCenter pointed out, this team seems to be building an identity around players with something to prove. Whether it's Marcus Smart trying to bounce back from injuries, Luka Doncic reportedly carrying a chip on his shoulder after criticism during the playoffs, or DeAndre Ayton looking to reshape how he's viewed across the league, this Lakers group is filled with guys hungry to rewrite the narrative. And if Smart can stay on the court and bring the same intensity he showed in Boston, the Lakers might have found exactly what they were missing: a leader on defense, a tone setter in the locker room, and a fighter who's ready to earn every win. Now, shifting gears to how Marcus Smart actually fits into this Lakers roster. SportsCenter gave us a deeper breakdown of his on-court value, especially on the defensive end. And frankly, his versatility could be a game-changer for head coach J.J. Redick. Smart's ability to guard multiple positions remains elite. Whether he's switching onto wings, chasing shooters around screens, or battling with ball-dominant guards, his defensive IQ and physicality give the Lakers flexibility they didn't have last season. On SportsCenter, one analyst even noted how seamlessly Smart can adapt to different lineups, whether it's going small with Anthony Davis at center or running more traditional sets with DeAndre Ayton anchoring the paint. Simply put, he's a Swiss Army knife on defense. And while some may wonder whether Smart can return to the high-impact version of himself we saw in Boston, there may be more optimism than expected. Mike Trudell, appearing on Mason and Ireland, mentioned he'd spoken with a few folks in Washington, Smart's brief stop before signing in LA, and their feedback was encouraging. They said the gap between the current Smart and the all-defensive Boston version isn't as wide as people might think. That's good news for the Lakers, who desperately need him to stay healthy and consistent, especially when it comes to defending elite guards. Which brings us to head coach J.J. Redick and his expectations for the veteran guard. In an interview with ESPN Radio, Smart opened up about the early conversation he had with Redick after signing. According to Smart, the message from the Lakers' new coach was simple: just Be yourself. Redick told him that he wants him to lean into his natural strengths, to be that disruptor, the agitator, the defensive tone setter who throws opposing offenses out of rhythm. That, in itself, tells us a lot about how LA plans to use him. Redick has a deep understanding of what Marcus Smart brings to the court, and he's not coming in with the intention of reinventing the wheel. He's not trying to turn Smart into something he's not. Instead, he wants to empower him to fully embrace his identity. That means giving him the freedom to play instinctively, to bring that signature edge, and to be the physical, relentless defensive presence he's always been. Redick wants Smart to lean into the chaos, to disrupt passing lane, dive for loose ball, and bring that emotional spark that can shift the momentum of a game in an instant. That kind of player, that kind of mentality, has been sorely lacking in Los Angeles. This vision fits hand in glove with what the Lakers have been missing over the past few seasons. A true point-of-attack stopper who isn't afraid of the dirty work. Someone who thrives in gritty, uncomfortable possessions and never backs down from a challenge. Smart's arrival adds a layer of toughness to this team, both physically and mentally, that's been absent for far too long. What makes this move even more intriguing is how it opens up new lineup possibility. With Smart on the floor, Redick has the flexibility to be more experimental with his rotation, especially when it comes to Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Smart's defensive versatility gives those two offensive focal points some breathing room. If Luka finds himself switched onto a quicker guard, or Reeves is being hunted by a high-volume scorer, Smart can step in seamlessly and take on that assignment without hesitation. He absorbs defensive pressure, freeing up LA's stars to focus more on what they do best: scoring and creating. In that way, Smart isn't just a fit. He's a key that unlocks a different, more balanced version of this Lakers team. This kind of versatility is exactly what Redick valued. Smart's presence opens up lineup combinations that otherwise wouldn't work. Whether it's unconventional small ball groups, staggered rotations with bench units, or injury-driven adjustments, Smart gives Redick the freedom to mix and match without sacrificing defensive identity. And don't forget, Smart is no stranger to high-stakes basketball. He's logged dozens of playoff games, many of them deep postseason runs with Boston. That experience matters in a city like Los Angeles, where pressure is constant and the spotlight is intense. Some players shrink under that kind of scrutiny. Smart has already proven he won't. Of course, all of this depends on one key variable: health. His injury history over the past 2 seasons can't be ignored. He's struggled to stay on the floor and hasn't played more than 60 games in a season in years. But if he can maintain his health, his impact could be felt immediately, especially on the defensive end, where the Lakers have lacked a true enforcer. SportsCenter wrapped up the segment by posing the same question many fans are asking: is Marcus Smart the final piece LA needs to round out their defense? Or are the concerns too real? The durability, the streaky shooting, the occasional questionable decision-making, like untimely flops or technical fouls. Whatever your take, one thing's for sure: the Lakers are betting on Smart's edge, experience, and energy to elevate this roster. And if he delivers, this could be one of the savviest low-cost moves of the offseason. Stay tuned! We've got more to cover in Part 3. Go ahead and send it. All right, let's break down what was just revealed on First Take this morning, because it could have massive implications for the Lakers' future. Multiple reports dropped, all confirming what's been speculated over the last few days. Los Angeles isn't done yet. In fact, they may just be getting started. One of the major talking points today was centered around Rob Pelinka and the Lakers' recent move, with particular attention given to the Marcus Smart signing. Yes, it's now official. Smart is a Laker. But what makes this news even more important is the context that came with it, including behind-the-scenes details that point directly to Luka Doncic's role in shaping this roster moving forward. Let's dive into it. The show opened by confirming what many had suspected. The Lakers' offseason isn't complete, not until we have full clarity on Luka's future in LA. According to First Take, the Lakers are preparing to visit him personally in Slovenia and plan to meet with him again during Eurobasket. He's reportedly spent meaningful time with team governor Jeannie Buss, which speaks volume. And the way insiders framed it, this isn't a guy positioning himself to leave in free agency. If anything, the exact opposite is happening. It's now confirmed that the Lakers are all in on retaining Luka long-term. And based on the internal momentum surrounding the situation, First Take analysts said they believe Doncic will remain in Los Angeles, which completely shifts the franchise's short and long-term strategy. It means bigger moves are coming, and the team is already laying the groundwork for those next steps. Now, let's go back to Marcus Smart for a second, because his own words told us a lot about the vision forming in LA. When asked why he chose the Lakers, Smart said the motivation is simple: winning. His exact sentiment was clear: this is where the show starts, and this is where the show ends. He spoke passionately about chasing championships and how the Lakers' current roster gives him a legitimate shot at returning to that stage. It's rare to hear a new signing speak with that much conviction, and it says a lot about where the franchise stands. And remember, the Lakers had to make tough choices to get him here. They parted ways with Jordan Goodwin and Shake Milton to create the roster flexibility they needed. It's already paying off. But here's where things took an even more interesting turn. Marcus Smart also opened up about his relationship with Luka, or rather, the lack of one prior to this summer. He explained that before this offseason, the two didn't have much of a connection beyond mutual respect, but that changed when Luka actively started recruiting him, and not just casually. Smart described it as a concerted effort. He said Luka was trying to build something special in Los Angeles and wanted Smart to be a part of it, and it gets deeper. The First Take panel emphasized that Doncic hasn't just been recruiting Smart. He's been working behind the scenes with Rob Pelinka, communicating regularly, and even having input on what direction the team should go. If there was ever any doubt about Luka's commitment to the Lakers, that doubt should be gone now. Add that to what Ramona Shelburne reported, that all signs point to Luka signing a new deal soon, and it's pretty clear he's not going anywhere. That's crucial for multiple reasons. First, it gives the Lakers a foundation to build around. Second, it allows them to be aggressive in trade talks and free agency, knowing their star is locked in. Third, it energizes the locker room. Just ask Marcus Smart, who's already echoing that excitement. Now, Smart didn't stop there. He admitted he knows he'll be booed by opposing crowds. He knows he'll have to earn the trust of Lakers fans. And yet, he's embracing it. He made it clear that he's ready to do whatever it takes, whether that's starting, coming off the bench, defending the other team's best player, or simply being a veteran presence in the locker room. And that's where we'll pause, because the rest of Smart's interview touches even deeper on Rob Pelinka's long-term vision and what the Lakers might still have up their sleeve. And here's where the conversation on First Take took another sharp turn. Lineup debates are already heating up. There was even a suggestion tossed out. Could Marcus Smart start over Austin Reeves? That's a bold call, no doubt, but it's a conversation worth having. We'll let fans weigh in on that. But what matters most right now, and what First Take emphasized, is that all indications point to Luka Doncic signing an extension with the Lakers. That's the true headline, because once Luka is locked in, everything else becomes secondary. The future of this franchise revolves around him, and the fact that he's actively recruiting players on behalf of Rob Pelinka, that tells you everything about his level of commitment. Now, speaking of Pelinka, let's take a look at what the Lakers GM had to say about all this, particularly about adding Marcus Smart. In his own words, Pelinka called Smart the kind of player who helps a team compete at the highest level. He highlighted Smart's ability to make winning plays, whether it's on defense, hitting timely shots, or simply setting the tone. His message was clear: Smart is the kind of addition that aligns perfectly with the team's culture and goal. That said, Pelinka didn't reveal too much about what might be next. The front office seems content, at least for now, with the roster, but they've got flexibility. As First Take pointed out, the Lakers still have about $40 million in expiring contracts, including names like Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber. Those contracts might not be core pieces, but they're incredibly valuable in the trade market. And with Luka expected to commit long-term, there's an urgency to start building seriously around him. Now, not later. One big question raised today: was about DeAndre Ayton. Could he be the long-term anchor at center for this team? That remains to be seen. His impact will depend heavily on his consistency and work ethic, two areas that have fluctuated in past seasons. If he locks in, he could absolutely be part of the Lakers' core moving forward. One thing is certain though, with Smart and Luka together, this team just added another competitor who goes all out every single night. While Smart may no longer be considered a pure lockdown defender, he's still a relentless presence. And that alone raises the Lakers' defensive floor. Because let's be honest, this has been a mediocre defensive team. Adding someone with Smart's IQ and motor is going to change that immediately. The panel also reminded us, Smart isn't old. At just 30, he's far from the end of his career. Sure, injuries have slowed him down in recent years, and last season with the Wizards was forgettable, but this is a guy just 3 years removed from winning Defensive Player of the Year. If he stays healthy, there's no reason he can't play a similar veteran role well into his late 30s. Think PJ Tucker-level longevity, but with more skill. Bottom line, the Lakers are better today than they were a week ago. Smart brings leadership, tenacity, and playoff experience. That raises both their floor and ceiling, especially on defense. And that's the kind of growth championship teams are built on. To wrap things up, First Take threw out a fun challenge for fans. What would your starting five look like if the Lakers had to play a must-win game tomorrow? Would you start Marcus Smart? Would Austin Reeves come off the bench? What about Rui Hachimura? Should he be moved into a sixth-man role? One proposed lineup had Luka, Reeves, Smart, LeBron, and Ayton, a smaller but versatile group. And honestly, with Luka as the core, you've got the flexibility to experiment. The bottom line from today's segment? The message is clear. Luka is the future, and the Lakers are already building the foundation around him. The extension looks imminent, and everything, from the Smart signing to Pelinka's comments, points to a front office that knows exactly what it's doing. So stay tuned, because if this momentum holds, the Lakers could be on the verge of something big. More news is coming, and First Take will be right here, breaking it all down. He's definitely a valuable piece for this roster, but let's not forget, they've got plenty of other guys who can make an impact. Take someone like Jake, for example. Plus, they're holding on to some expiring contracts, which gives them flexibility. Now look over at the bottom right. Check out those draft picks. It's not an overwhelming amount, but compared to where they started, it's a huge upgrade. They didn't lose any major picks. That 2031 first-rounder, still theirs. They've also secured a few pick swaps, and now they're stocked with second-rounders too. So no, it's not enough to pull off a blockbuster for a superstar, but it's definitely enough to go out and get exactly what they need. A strong on-ball defender who can guard at the point of attack. That's going to do it for this breakdown. Appreciate you all for tuning in. All right, folks, let's jump right into it, because this was just discussed live on ESPN's First Take, and it's the kind of low-key move that could quietly reshape the Lakers' depth chart. According to the report that Shams Charania just dropped, the Los Angeles Lakers have made a pair of under-the-radar signings. But don't let the word sneaky fool you. These moves could end up being incredibly strategic in the long run. Now, on First Take, the report that was brought to the table focused on two signings: Christian Coco, a familiar name to Lakers fans, and Chris Mannon, a lesser-known player who just made waves during the Summer League. These two players are reportedly joining the Lakers on two-way contracts. And while they may not be headline stars today, there's more to these deals than meets the eye. So, let's break down exactly what this means, not just for the players, but for Rob Pelinka's larger strategy. Before we get too deep, the guys on First Take made it clear. These moves are part of the front office's plan to shore up the roster without compromising flexibility. Coco, Mannon, and Trey Gison are now set to occupy the team's 3 official two-way contract spots. That shift also explains why the team recently waived Jordan Goodwin, who wasn't eligible for another two-way deal after spending time in that role last season. So the Lakers are being deliberate with how they fill those slots. Let's start with Christian Coco. Since he's the more familiar face here, the former Raptors draft pick has had an up-and-down journey. While he never really made a huge splash in Toronto, he did show potential as a lob target and pick-and-roll big man, especially during short stints with the Lakers. But let's not forget, Koko missed the entire 2023-2024 season due to a blood clot issue. Since then, he's been trying to work his way back, and last season he managed to get a few looks with the Lakers. What was pointed out on First Take is that his game still has some serious limitations. He's not a shooter, his touch around the rim isn't polished, and for his size, he hasn't developed into a dominant rebounder yet. But what the Lakers seem to be banking on is that there's still upside to unlock. They're clearly hoping the G League environment can help him grow, both physically and mentally, into the kind of role-playing big they could call on in a pinch. With Jackson Hayes now re-signed and Maxi Kleber also in the mix, Koko won't be needed for rotation minutes anytime soon, but this deal gives him time and space to develop behind the scenes. So yeah, it makes sense. You stash Koko on a two-way, let him work through the system, and see what he becomes. Not every signing has to be a home run. Some are just smart singles. Now, let's shift to the real wild card here, Chris Mannon. And this was the name that really caught the panel's attention during First Take. The undrafted guard is a bit of a mystery to casual fans, but those who watched him during the Summer League know this guy brought serious energy. He started his college career at Cornell, where he was a defensive pest, and then moved on to Vanderbilt for his final year. He didn't put up eye-popping numbers offensively. In fact, his shooting took a dip last season, but his effort on the defensive end, that's what turned heads. He averaged over 2 steals per game in his final year at Cornell. And even though his numbers at Vanderbilt weren't stellar, scouts noted his hustle, instincts, and defensive versatility. According to what was said on First Take, the Lakers front office, and especially the coaching staff, have been paying attention to that kind of effort. Defense is something the Lakers value deeply, especially in their guard rotation. With Mannon, they might see a player who can come in, defend multiple positions, and maybe even carve out a role if injuries hit the main roster. His Summer League performance helped his case big time. He wasn't out there just trying to get buckets. He was diving for loose balls, making smart reads, pressuring opposing ball handlers, and doing all the little things that coaching staffs love. That kind of grit often earns two-way guys a shot in real NBA minutes when the time is right. So, what does this all mean for Rob Pelinka and the Lakers' long-term vision? Well, as was said on First Take, it's a classic Pelinka move. These aren't blockbuster signings, but they're the type of calculated, forward-thinking additions that could give the Lakers depth when it matters most. They're already stacked with veteran names, but with Koko, Mannon, and Geisson filling those two-way slots, they've added upside, insurance, and flexibility, all without committing major money or roster space. And let's not forget, these kinds of low-key roster moves are often what separate contenders from pretenders once the season really gets rolling. If even one of these guys breaks out or becomes a useful bench piece, it'll be viewed as a huge win for the Lakers' player development pipeline. So now, the floor is yours. The First Take crew made their points. Now I want to hear yours. Do you think these signings matter? Can Mannon crack the rotation if injuries pile up? Will Koko ever turn into something more than a project big man? Or are these just roster filler moves with no real long-term value? Drop your thoughts below. And don't forget, this is exactly the kind of under-the-radar update that real fans pay attention to. Until next time, Laker Nation, stay locked in. Now, continuing with what was highlighted earlier today on First Take, the conversation turned toward Chris Mannon and what makes this signing intriguing beyond the surface. According to DK's prospect board, Mannon was ranked 57th, not a household name, but certainly someone who popped on scouts' radar. His per-36-minute stats in the Summer League raised some eyebrows, especially on the defensive end, which, as the analysts pointed out, is really where he shines. That's his identity. And it's no coincidence the Lakers picked him up to fill the void left by Jordan Goodwin. Now, while they both operate at similar positions, their play styles aren't identical. Goodwin is more of a physical, rebound-hungry guard who brings grit and hustle. Manon? He's cut from a similar cloth when it comes to effort, but there's more polish to his defensive fundamentals. He's quicker laterally, more instinctual in passing lanes, and likely offers more upside on that end of the floor. Offensively, there's still work to be done, and that was pointed out clearly on First Take. Manon's college production wasn't flashy. He averaged 6 points and about 4 boards last season, and he wasn't lighting it up from deep. In fact, his three-point shot still needs development. But in Summer League, the story flipped a bit. He looked composed, smart with the ball, and most importantly, he didn't try to do too much. He played within the system and made winning plays. What makes this more interesting is that he was considered one of the top undrafted free agents still available, and the Lakers managed to bring him in on a two-way contract. It's a quiet move, but one that could pay off if Manon can continue that development track. Honestly, as discussed during the segment, there's a lot more buzz about Manon than people expected. Even with all the attention on Christian Coco, there's a real sense that Manon could be the more exciting long-term piece. And remember, this is consistent with how the Lakers have been operating recently. Their player development system has shown promise. We've seen fringe guys grow into legitimate contributors. So giving Manon time in the G League, letting him learn behind seasoned players like Luka Doncic and some of the veterans on this roster could be exactly what he needs. Worth noting, too, Coco apparently had interest from other teams. While it wasn't about full NBA contracts, there was competition for his two-way rights, and he still chose to come back to LA. That says something about the environment they're building. There's a clear path for these guys to grow. But here's the real question that First Take put on the table. Will either of these moves actually matter at the NBA level? That's the unknown. No one expected Jordan Goodwin to impact games last year, yet he did. So could Coco or Manon follow that same path? It's not out of the question. And that's why this news is more significant than it may seem on the surface. We want to hear from you, especially if you followed Manon back in college. What's your read on his potential? Could he end up surprising everyone like Goodwin did? Now, shifting gears, let's touch quickly on another topic that broke during the same First Take segment. Marcus Smart's arrival in LA. His signing is now expected to become official once waivers are cleared. And insider Mark Stein just added a very interesting layer to that narrative. According to Stein, Luka Doncic played an instrumental role in recruiting Smart to the Lakers, and it seems the two have been on the same page throughout the offseason. Smart's conditioning has reportedly been a focus. The Lakers were told that he's taking this summer seriously, trimming down, getting quicker, and preparing for a bounce-back year after a season where his fitness was a point of criticism. If that's true, this could turn into one of the more impactful, under-the-radar pickups of the offseason. Add to that, there's some optimism about Jared Vanderbilt. The same report mentioned that he's finally close to full health, healthier than he's been at any point in the last year. That's a huge plus. He could be a serious piece in the Lakers' rotation when training camp rolls around. He hasn't played like himself since before the injuries, so this is like adding a new player altogether. So let's look at the current outlook. You've got Coco and Manon now locked in as two-way guys with clear roles to develop quietly. Then you have a core lineup shaping up. Doncic, Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, and DeAndre Ayton that already looks stronger than last season. Jackson Hayes, who was previously starting, now shifts back to the bench. And Marcus Smart gives you that veteran defensive grit off the bench. Though First Take brought up a valid point, should Smart start over Reeves? That sparked some debate. One angle says, keeping Smart with the starters gives the Lakers a defensive anchor from the jump, while Reeves, who had a career year, could lead the second unit offensively. Would Reeves like that role change? Maybe not, but strategically, it could make a lot of sense. We also can't overlook players like Jake LaRavia, who could bring scoring punch off the bench, especially if Smart and Hayes hold down defensive responsibility. This is shaping up to be one of the deeper, more flexible Lakers teams we've seen in recent years. And these low-key signings like Manon and Coco might end up being sneaky Smart pieces of that puzzle. More updates coming soon, but for now, let us know what you think. Should Smart start? Can Manon become a factor? Is Coco worth the investment? We'll keep breaking it down for you every step of the way. It'll be really intriguing to see how some of these lineups shake out. Imagine a group with Doncic, Smart, and LaRavia on the floor together alongside LeBron. Curious to see how that dynamic plays out. Off the bench, you've got Rui and Reed, which could give this team a strong, dependable second unit. There are definitely a lot of different ways this rotation could be adjusted and experimented with. Let me know in the comments what you think about all of this, with JJ Redick calling the shots. We know he likes to mix things up and try different lineup combinations. It's going to be fascinating to see how he handles this roster and which players get prioritized. So sound off below with your reaction, not just to the lineup possibilities, but also to the recent signing, and, of course, Chris Mannix's take. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. What aired on SportsCenter tonight really caught people's attention, because the conversation didn't just revolve around current rosters or trade rumors. It zeroed in on a player whose situation is quickly heating up across the league, Jonathan Kuminga. The panel laid out the growing buzz surrounding him, and one team that absolutely needs to start paying attention is the Los Angeles Lakers. The discussion opened with a simple but pointed take. The Lakers have to throw their hat in the ring for Kuminga. Based on all the noise around the league, it's clear that something is brewing between the Warriors and their young forward. According to sources referenced on the show, the relationship between Kuminga and Golden State is cooling rapidly. Some reports have even gone as far as saying the Warriors don't want him back, which speaks volume. And when you start evaluating the trade offers floating around, it's clear this is a situation that's ripe for the taking. They highlighted the package from Sacramento, a deal built around Dario Saric, rookie guard Devin Carter, and a protected first-round pick. And SportsCenter made it clear that's not the kind of offer that moves the needle for a team trying to stay in contention. It's underwhelming at best. And while you could argue that something is better than nothing, the Warriors are reportedly leaning toward patience rather than rushing into a low-value move. Then came Phoenix, and that potential offer, at least on paper, looked better. Royce O'Neal, Nick Richards, and a handful of second-rounders. That deal feels a little more reasonable. But here's the kicker. Even with better pieces being discussed, the Warriors reportedly aren't interested in Dillon Brooks being part of the return, despite him being floated in various proposals. That part surprised the panel. If you're Golden State and you're being offered a tough defender like Brooks, a serviceable center in Richards, and a veteran like O'Neal, why not take that? But beyond all the hypotheticals and packages, the main point SportsCenter kept circling back to was simple. The Lakers could easily beat those offers. If the asking price is that low, why isn't LA getting aggressive? And the more you listen, the more it becomes obvious that this might be one of those rare opportunities where timing and need align perfectly. Kuminga is 22 years old. He's younger than some of the players taken in this year's draft, including Dalton Knecht. If the Lakers had drafted a prospect like Kuminga with the 17th pick last month, the narrative would be all about upside and potential. But instead, they have the chance to acquire a young forward who already has multiple years of NBA experience, including deep playoff runs, and who still hasn't scratched the surface of what he could become. Now sure, the concerns are valid. Kuminga has struggled with consistency. He's had stretches where he's looked disengaged or lost, but part of that inconsistency can be blamed on the Warriors themselves. And SportsCenter didn't hold back on this point. The coaching staff hasn't exactly done him any favors. One night, he's starting alongside Steph Curry and being asked to defend the opposing team's best player and score 20 points. The next night, he's getting a DNP or buried at the end of the bench with no clear explanation. That kind of rotation chaos makes it impossible for a young player to find rhythm or confidence. And Steve Kerr, as much as he's respected, deserves some of the blame. The panel pointed out that Kuminga's development has been yo-yoed around for too long. One game he's the second option, the next he's out of the rotation. How can you grow under that? And that's exactly why the Lakers should pounce. They need youth, they need athleticism, they need size and versatility on the wing, all of which Kuminga offers. He can play the 3 or the 4, He can guard multiple positions. He's explosive in transition and has shown flashes of becoming a real scoring threat. It's the exact profile of player this Lakers team has been missing, especially as they try to get younger while still remaining competitive in the West. The comparison then shifted to Andrew Wiggins, a player Kuminga has often been measured against. And while Wiggins might be the safer, more proven option, he doesn't have Kuminga's upside. Wiggins knows his role and fits nicely as a third or fourth option on a contending team. But if the Lakers are looking to build something more sustainable, something that bridges the gap between the LeBron era and whatever comes next, then Kuminga is the type of player you take a chance on. SportsCenter also made it clear, Kuminga has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove the Warriors wrong. He wants to prove to the entire league that he is that guy. And given the right opportunity, like a fresh start in LA, he might just explode. The potential is still there. The talent is still real. And the motivation, that might be the strongest asset he has right now. In a Western Conference that's getting younger, faster, and more versatile by the day, the Lakers can't afford to sit back. If teams like the Kings and Suns are putting together mid-tier offers for a player with Kuminga's ceiling, LA has every reason to get involved. And based on what was said tonight on SportsCenter, they should be picking up the phone immediately. The message from the panel was clear. This is an opportunity to grab a potential franchise piece while his value is still depressed. Jonathan Kuminga might not be the final piece to a title run today, but he could absolutely be a cornerstone for the next great Lakers team, and that's a move worth making. Now, continuing with what was said tonight on SportsCenter, the conversation took a deeper turn. It wasn't just about who Jonathan Kuminga is right now. It was about what kind of calculated risk he represents. And the panel broke that down in full detail. In today's NBA, you have to take chances if you want to break through, but not reckless ones, strategic gambles. And that's exactly what Kuminga could be for the Lakers. As mentioned on the show, AEA doesn't have endless assets to throw around. They're operating with limited trade capital, and every move has to count. But if you can put together a smart package, something with real upside that doesn't completely empty your war chest, then taking a swing on Kuminga makes a lot of sense. Whether it's moving off a guy like Rui Hachimura, or even including someone like Dalton Knecht, the idea is this. If those players help you land a 22-year-old forward with elite athleticism and untapped upside, you have to consider it. They talked numbers too. Sacramento and Phoenix reportedly both offered Kuminga 4-year deals in the ballpark of $90 million. Meanwhile, Golden State has tried pushing a 2-year, $45 million deal, a contract structure that's clearly designed to retain trade flexibility. The Warriors aren't trying to build around Kuminga. They want to keep him on a tradable deal and flip him later. That's not the kind of situation that builds trust or commitment. That's a red flag. But SportsCenter made an interesting point. Even if Kuminga ends up making $22.5 million per year, that's still very movable in today's salary cap landscape. That contract doesn't cripple you, especially for a player with his upside. And worst case, he ends up being a rotational forward off your bench, playing 15-20 minutes a night. Best case, he grows into the type of impact player you can build around. One of the panelists even floated an idea. What if the Lakers got Luka Doncic involved in the pitch? Not literally in a trade, but in helping to sell Kuminga on a fresh start. Tell him, come to LA, we've got a role for you. Be the starting small forward. You'll play real minute. You'll get a defined responsibility. No more wondering from game to game where you stand. You'll know what's expected every night. That's all Kuminga's ever asked for, consistency. He said it himself. He's willing to play a role. He just wants to know what that role is. He doesn't want to bounce from being the primary defender one night to a DNP the next. Give him something stable, and he'll buy in. On the Lakers, he'd be no worse than the 4th or 5th option on offense. But if he starts to break out and show that high-level shot creation people once projected him for, then suddenly you have a real asset on your hand. And in that case, maybe you do explore moving someone like Austin Reeves down the line, because now you have a wing who's longer, stronger, and just as dangerous. One of the concerns people raised on the show was shooting, and they addressed it directly. Yes, Kuminga isn't a sharpshooter, but he's 22. Very few 22-year-olds enter the league as elite shooters. If this were a rookie fresh out of college, putting up the kind of flashes Kuminga has already shown, everyone would be calling him a can't-miss prospect. But because he's been in the league for a few years, the perception is warped. Context matters, and this context is important. The Golden State environment has been chaotic. He's been asked to fill roles that don't fit him, with no long-term plan in place. And yet, despite that instability, he's managed to show real growth. He's betting on himself, and if you're the Lakers, you should want to bet on him too. The idea of offering a 4-year deal in the $18 to $20 million range was brought up too. Something a little lower than what Phoenix and Sacramento are dangling, but paired with the promise of playing time, a clear role, and the spotlight of Los Angeles. That might be enough to lure him in. There aren't many franchises that offer a better platform than the Lakers. You want to get noticed? You want to shine? You do it in purple and gold. The conversation then circled back to comparison. Andrew Wiggins is the safer pick. He fits into a system, plays defense, hits corner threes, and knows exactly who he is. If you want to maximize LeBron's final year or two, Wiggins helps you win right now. But Kuminga gives you something Wiggins can: upside. If Kuminga hits, he raises your ceiling in a way Wiggins never will. That's the gamble. They broke it down further. Kuminga can defend multiple positions. He can drive past defenders with ease. He can finish through contact. And despite his reputation, he's shown he can win games on his own. Go back and watch some of Golden State's big wins last year. Kuminga took over late in multiple games. Not Steph, not Clay. It was Kuminga who closed things out. Now, yes, his shooting is a work in progress. He's a career 33.2% shooter, from 3 on limited attempts. But again, that's fixable, especially if he gets consistent minutes, coaching, and reps. He's not some lost cause. He's a 22-year-old who hasn't been properly developed yet. And that was the bottom line on SportsCenter tonight. If you're the Lakers, you can't just sit back and watch other teams lowball the Warriors for a guy with this much potential. If all it takes is something like Rui, Knecht, and a future first, maybe a little salary filler, then why wouldn't you take that swing? Because if Kuminga hits, you didn't just make a trade, you might have found your next foundational piece. And to wrap things up, the conversation on SportsCenter tonight didn't just end on numbers or trade packages. It shifted to mindset, to work ethic, and how much that truly matters when evaluating someone like Jonathan Kuminga. One of the analysts pointed out how Kuminga's been putting out workout videos nearly every day, not for vanity, but to signal to teams that he's locked in, that he's ready, and that he wants this next chapter to be different. He's doing everything he can to be seen, to stay sharp, and to send a message to front offices. I'm all in. That effort matters. And the panel made a compelling point. If he's really that committed, if he's really putting in that kind of work, then bring him into a system that will support that growth. Look at the coaching staff in Los Angeles now. J.J. Redick, one of the greatest pure shooters the game has ever seen, now in the head coaching chair. Who better to help a young, athletic wing like Kuminga develop his outside game? The Lakers spent all of last offseason talking about building a foundation around young talent. They said they wanted to be a developmental hub. Well, this is your shot. You've got Bronny James on the roster. You've got a high upside guy like Dalton Knecht. You've got a freak athlete in Dylan Danger. Add Kuminga to that mix, and now we're talking about something serious. Now imagine if Kuminga actually hits. Not saying he becomes a superstar, not saying he's suddenly all-NBA, but what if he turns into a borderline all-star? A two-way wing who can score, defend, and make plays. That kind of growth, alongside someone like Danger, or even a progressing Bronny James, suddenly gives the Lakers one of the most athletic, versatile young cores in the league. And think about the defensive potential. With that length, that switchability, that energy, You could build lineups that smother opponents and fly in transition. And if, say, DeAndre Ayton pans out as a future 5 in this system, then you've got size at every position and spacing around your core. Even if Kuminga doesn't evolve into a 20-point scorer, if he just becomes a high-level role player, think Andrew Wiggins in the Warriors' title run, that's still a massive win. Wiggins wasn't the number 1 or 2 option, but as a 3rd or 4th guy, he was critical. And if Kuminga lands in that same tier, that's more than enough to push the Lakers into serious contention. That's the point SportsCenter kept driving home. It's not about swinging for the fences with no plan. It's about recognizing potential that's already shown flashes, then investing in the right situation to help that talent flourish. And LA could be the right place. So yeah, go ahead and dream. Picture Kuminga alongside this new young core. Imagine the upside. Imagine the energy. And even if he never becomes the guy, he might just be your guy, the perfect high-impact starter, or 6th man who helps you win meaningful games in April, May, and maybe even June. That's why the panel agreed. The Lakers shouldn't hesitate. If they have the chance to land Kuminga without giving up a franchise cornerstone, they have to explore it. Because in today's league, upside matters. And if you believe in the work he's putting in the flashes he's already shown, and in the context he's coming out of, then the bet becomes a lot easier to make. And that was the final takeaway from tonight's SportsCenter. The opportunity is real. The price might be manageable. And the fit? It might be better than people realize. Now, the ball is in the Lakers' court.